What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Majesty Speaks podcast. I am your host, Faith, and I'm excited to have a special guest on for today. So today we have Miss Tiffany Allen. She is a former school teacher turned spiritual leader. She's very passionate about guiding others on their self-transformation journey. And through her deep knowledge of astrology and NLP, she is helping clients reconnect with their true selves and discover their soul's purpose. Tiffany, welcome. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So can you tell the people a little bit about you and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah. So in my past, I identified as a lot of different things, a pastor's daughter. I became a mom and then I identified as a mom. And when I got married, I identified as a wife. And somewhere along the journey, as I was checking off all these boxes of what people said would make me happy, I lost myself and I was struggling with depression. And I realized that I didn't know who I was anymore. And why I was here. And so I went on this mission to uncover who I was, who I truly was beneath all these labels that I had placed on myself or society placed on me. And so I went through a divorce in 2020 and I left the school system a year later, and this was all in the middle of the pandemic. And so I had this opportunity to sit with myself a lot, and I started peeling back the layers of who I wasn't. And through that process, I felt like I had come back home to who I truly was. And most of that was through my birth chart. I feel like just like the stars can't shine without the darkness, I realized how to transmute any of my past trauma or pain or any difficult situations I've been through and being able to turn it into like a treasure or a strength and being able to grow from that. And so I'm really passionate about helping other people who feel like they're in a dark time or struggling with depression or moms who feel like they've lost themselves to help them use different modalities to come back home to who they truly are and to find that freedom and find their spark again.
I absolutely love that. I love how, so I was actually listening to your podcast this morning.
I love that.
Yeah. And I'll get into that because I want to talk about that as well. But I love just throughout your content and throughout like your messaging that there's this sense of you have to go like through the darkness to really discover your true light. And I feel like so many people look at that as a bad thing. Like they don't want to embrace that shadow or like, it's evil, it's bad, it's dark, but it's like, just like the womb, like it's a power, it's a beauty in the darkness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like we wouldn't be the version of us today if we had not gone through those struggles and the pain and the traumas. And
Mm,
so being able to appreciate it and learn the lesson instead of staying stuck in the pain has been
yeah.
so empowering for me.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Okay, okay. Before I dive deeper into the episode, I'm trying to do this with all my guests. I don't remember to do it always, but I'm gonna try. So can you tell the people and me what is your big three or big six in astrology?
Yes. So I am a Gemini sun, Virgo moon, Sagittarius rising, and then my Venus and Mars are in Cancer,
Oh,
and my Mercury is in Taurus.
oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm also a Gemini sun. Oh my God.
Oh, perfect. I'm
That
on
makes
the cusp.
sense.
So I'm like right at the beginning of Gemini. So if I was born a couple hours earlier, I would be Taurus. And I tend to like resonate more with Taurus the more I go on my
Mhm.
journey, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Interesting. Okay. So are you having a Mars return then since your Mars is in Cancer?
I am not sure.
I think
That's a good
so, because yeah,
question.
Mars is in yeah, yeah. How's
Okay.
that going?
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly haven't really delved into Mars returns. I'm familiar with Saturn return, but that's definitely something I want to learn more about from you.
It's every 2 years. So I find it most fascinating when you think about toddlers, right? The terrible
Uh-huh.
twos. That's your first Mars return. And it makes sense, right? When you look at the energy of Mars.
Yeah.
So another episode, another
Yeah.
episode. But okay, cool, cool, cool. So how was the transition? I know you mentioned that you were a preacher's kid or a pastor's kid. How was that transition from going from being known as that or like that stigma to more of a spiritual lifestyle?
It's honestly been pretty challenging. I have been having a lot of witch wounds come up because
Mm,
I'm very like tapped into my witchy energy now. And
yeah.
I've had at least three people reach out from former churches who have told me I'm doing witchcraft and they're praying for me and
Oh
am
my
I still
goodness.
walking with Christ? And I've just been getting like some negative feedback from people in the church.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm open to exploring all different religions and hearing other people's perspectives. And so I do respond to those with love. And
Hmm.
also, it's been a struggle for me to really fully step into like speaking my truth because
Yeah.
it's like that witch wound or like fear of judgment or like fear of like
Mhm.
sinning that I'm doing something wrong. That's also something that I had worked through a lot is this
Yeah.
fear of doing something wrong. And it's like,
Right.
who am I even like afraid is gonna punish me? And I think it goes back to the religious programming that like
Mhm.
I saw God as a kid as like this man up in heaven who was like slapping people on the wrist and like you're going to hell, or I even got punished for like saying damn it in church and my mom was like if you say that your whole body's going to be burning in hell and like
Hi,
just
girl.
so afraid of doing the wrong thing. And I had a friend say to me last year, and it stuck with me. She said, any choice you make for you is always the right choice, and you can't make a wrong choice. And
Yeah.
so that's really helped me to trust that as long as I am doing and saying and embodying what I feel to be in alignment, then
Mhm.
like there's that's going to be what's best for everyone else around me, even if they don't agree with my beliefs. And even though they might judge me, it's just trusting that I'm not doing anything wrong or bad by
Right.
me being me, as long as I'm not consciously harming anyone.
Hmm.
It's just like really stepping into who you are and yeah, so moving away from religion, I'm seeing more of the unity in everyone and everything and
Yes.
just really working to embody love. It's so ironic to me that I grew up Christian and it was like all about how God is love. And the version of God that was taught to me at church was like
It's
the
not.
farthest thing from love
It's
and
very
caused so
fear-based.
much division and like hatred and judgment. And even now,
Yeah.
even though I'm not at church and I'm an adult, I still have people reaching out to me telling me that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm
Mm.
sinning, that they're praying for me. And I just do my best to send them love and knowing that that's where they are in their journey. And they may not be open to alternate perspectives. And I'm just like very open-minded. And
Yeah.
especially as a Gemini, we're like, let's learn
See
all the
both
things and
sides.
dive into everything and
Yeah.
like curiosity. And so, yeah, I'm just like open to hearing anyone's perspective and exploring any kind of modality and giving it a chance before judging it and
Yeah.
condemning it. Like with
Mm.
tarot, I had someone tell me that I'm doing witchcraft the other day and that I'm like working for Satan. And I'm like, actually, I use tarot to tap into my intuition, and it just gives me like a visual of how to better communicate with my like self, my higher self.
Right.
And I do it to help inspire other people too. And so
Yeah.
it's just funny how people who haven't even
Studied
stepped
it.
outside of the church realm, they're just
Yeah.
like, they're so stuck in the programming. And all you can
Right.
really do is like send them love and knowing that if they're meant to explore, they'll do it at their own time. And it's not up to me to convince them to break out of their programming if
Yeah.
it's working for them.
That is so beautiful, and I respect that so much because I mean, I don't feel like it's talked about enough that that transition and that isolating feeling after you step away from what you were raised from, as far as like if you grew up in a certain religion and then you go on a different path. So I really appreciate you speaking on that, and then also like the tarot comment. It's actually I find it funny because a lot of the esoteric stuff that we study, like tarot, astrology, numerology, all of these things, they are interlaced within the Bible, but the way the Bible has been interpreted for all these years is just so removed from its original like context because the tarot actually has a lot of biblical references, but if you don't study it, you would never know that. But I mean, no offense, but the average Christian barely studied their Bible like that, so we're not gonna go down that that route.
Yeah.
So that is beautiful. I guess we'll add that as another episode to come back and like I want to do a series on alternative Gnostic early Christianity teachings because those are very, very closely aligned with what everybody terms as New Age spirituality. Like some of the concepts that are spoken about in the texts that were taken out of the Bible are go hand in hand with a lot of what you see in the spiritual community today. So I'll probably call you back for that
Yeah, I
one.
love that. I'm all about like the divine feminine and divine masculine and balancing the energies and
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
I love it.
Okay, perfect. So, next, I just want to, we briefly touched on how you had a nomadic journey, like a nomad experience, and eventually you also were using astrocartography during that time. So, can you tell me a little bit about how did you learn about astrocartography? And I guess that'll probably segue into the nomadic journey or vice versa.
Okay. Yeah, so I can't remember like an exact moment when I came across it. I do know it was right after so I went through the divorce in 2020 and I realized I had been blaming a lot of my patterns on my parents and my ex-husband. So
Mhm.
started my journey with NLP to like uncover limiting beliefs. And I was on this self-discovery journey and I wanted to go deeper and deeper. And then I was introduced to plant medicine, and it was during a psilocybin journey where
Mhm.
I saw the world as this playground. And
Mhm.
I had moved around a lot as a kid, and so and I'm a Sagittarius rising, so I'm all about
Right.
adventure. Like that is
Yeah.
my love language, is traveling and adventures.
Yeah.
And I don't like staying in the same spot for very long. And at the time I was living in Las Vegas and we were only there because my ex-husband had a job where we had moved back there. That's where we
Mhm.
met at church in 2005. And then we
Okay.
had moved away in 2011, came
Mhm.
back. And so I was wanting to get out of Las Vegas since 2019. And so then in
Mhm.
2021, went on the psilocybin journey, was opened up to seeing like the world as this place to be explored. And I was working through victim mindset. And I was also practicing trusting myself in the universe. And so I
Mhm.
felt this pull to dive into astrocartography. At the time, I was into astrology and I heard about location astrology and how you can tap into different energies on Earth. And I was on this healing journey. And so I saw this vision of me selling everything, like packing everything up, selling it, and going and traveling. So at the end of 2021, I sold everything except what could fit in my car, and I began my journey. And the first place, I only knew the first place I was going, and
Mhm.
I thought it was just going to be a couple weeks. It ended up being a 2-year journey. And so I started by going to Salt Lake City, and then each place that I went to, it was like the next step was revealed to where I was led to go. And
Mhm.
when I would go to those places, or before I would go, I would look at my astrocartography chart and see what
Mhm.
energies were present on my chart so that I can use that intention to heal, because I knew I needed to heal like some things from my past and things that were still affecting my present. I just wasn't really sure on what it was. So
Yeah.
this kind of gave me like a guide, like a tool, like, okay, here, like try this area and see if anything comes up. And so I ended up going around the United States, and then I felt like my soul like calling me to tap even more and expand my trust with the universe. And so I spent basically the rest of my money to buy a one-way ticket to South Africa, which at the time I was healing. So I had been healing my mother wound through my birth chart.
Okay.
And then I was feeling this pull to go to South Africa. And then I ended up meeting this local person there in this community. And it was a spiritual community. And yeah, just it felt very aligned to go there. And so I went there with the intention to heal my masculine energy because I also had dad wounds coming up and like God, the father wounds coming up,
Right,
like
right.
healing that part of my trust with the universe and knowing that the universe is a co-creator with me and like we're on the same team and there's no one out there like this higher figure that's like you're doing something wrong, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
It's like they
Like the
want
sky
us.
daddy doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the energy of God is like
Mm,
within all of us, and
right.
the more we can tap into our higher self, the closer I feel connected to God. And the more I travel and experience different cultures and different places in nature, I feel closer to God in nature and through other people and through self-discovery than I ever did sitting in a church building. And so
Mm,
I ended up going to South Africa. And then while I was there, it was a really painful experience because it was near my Mars line and my
mm,
North Node, and I think my Chiron as well. And I was just feeling very like out of balance to where a lot of wounds were coming up that I was having a hard time healing through. And so
yeah.
while I was in Africa, I had overdrafted my account. I had to like reach out to people on Facebook asking for help to get back to the United States because I had just bought a one-way ticket and then my account overdrafted and I couldn't get a job there because I wasn't a citizen. And I was like, okay, how am I gonna get a plane ticket back? And
Yeah.
so I had a bunch of friends that had sent me money on Venmo, and then someone bought me a ticket back to the United States. And I went while I
Mhm,
was there, I had stopped in Botswana on the way back to the United States and stayed with some family friends from a trip
mhm.
from when I was in elementary school. So that was cool too, because like I had just gone through this really painful like wounds that were coming up through my
Yeah.
chart that I went there with intention to heal. And then I got there and the energy was so strong. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to like leave
Yeah.
because like the pain is so bad right now. And at
Mm,
the same time, I stayed there 5 weeks and I had learned so much. I had an appreciation for things that I had taken for granted because I had
yeah.
stayed on a farm there and like you had to, anyways, you had to heat your own water and we were like in the middle of nowhere. And
Yeah.
but there was like this community that was so nurturing and I just like was led to the exact people that I needed to on my journey
Mm,
and then got to reconnect with friends that I hadn't seen since like fifth grade. And so
right.
they were like, do you want to go? Do you want us to fly you back to Las Vegas where your kids are? And at the time, as I was having all these wounds come up, I got this email for a clinical research study to get paid to do a psilocybin study. And it was for healthy volunteers and it was looking for a cure for depression and PTSD. And at the time, I had my sexual trauma wounds coming back up. And so this study was in Kansas City. And when I looked up my chart, it was my Chiron, my North Node, and my Pluto line. It was like three parallel lines. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my gosh, this is like perfect. Like I couldn't have
Yeah.
planned it better if I wanted to because it was the energies that I wanted to tap into. I
Right.
went to Kansas City with the intention to work through my karma, clear my karma, and start
Yeah.
stepping into my dharma and my destiny. And so it was like those lines
Or
aligned
perfect.
perfectly for that. And so,
Yeah.
and it was through a paid mushroom study. I got paid $3,800 to do mushrooms in a clinical setting and got to work with a therapist through my wounds that came up. Even though
Wow.
I had like mostly healed from my depression, I did have those wounds coming back up. So they
Mhm.
wanted people who had some experience with psilocybin and had things to work through. And so it was a two-part study. And so in between the two studies, I had flown back to Vegas to see my kids, and it was my daughter's birthday. And then I flew back, and I was also having my psychic gifts come back online when I went to Kansas City because it was like my North Node and then Pluto as well. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
those energies together like help activate your spiritual gifts and psychic gifts because so this is where I live now, and it's like they've been coming online so quickly over the past year and a half.
Mm.
So when I flew back to Kansas City, I started like really being able to tune into my intuition, and I was getting off the plane, and it would be like little things where I would like play with my intuition and I would get these like intuitive hits. And so normally I would take an Uber and my intuition was like take a lift, and it just came through in this like calm clear voice, and I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." Okay, like I already had the Uber app pulled up. I ended up booking a Lyft, and as soon as I saw the name pop up, I was like, I don't know who this person is, but my whole life is about to change. Like I just felt like it was so strong. And so
Yeah.
I get into the car, and he was like, "Oh, sorry, my son's booster seat's back there." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how old is your son?" And he's like, 8. I'm like, "No way, my daughter just turned 8 today." Because I had just seen her for her
Wow.
birthday, and I was flying back for the second part of the study. And so it was
Right.
like immediately there was that synchronicity where one of our kids were the same age. And
Mm.
he's like, "Oh, okay, so do you live here?" And I was like, "Actually, I'm here to do a paid mushroom study." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool." And so we
Yeah.
were talking about that because he had also been using psychedelics with intention to heal.
Mm.
And then we were talking more, and it turned out he had done the same exact NLP training that I did. And he's like, "Yeah, I still have my binder right here." And like his training manual was on his front seat. And so it was another synchronicity. And he like at one point in the car ride turned around and he's like, "I like you." And I was like, "You," because we were just like vibing. And with the North Node point on my chart and the energy there, it's also like calling in community and like-minded people who help you step into your dharma. And
Yeah.
so at the time I was like, this is so cool. It's like someone who's so aligned with what I'm doing. Like they're using NLP and psychedelics to heal. And he has an 8-year-old, and I have an 8-year-old, and I had a
Yeah.
9-year-old at the time too. He's now 11. And so we ended up exchanging numbers, and I went to the clinical study. And so on my journey, as I was like just being led place to place, I was doing house sitting as a way to have places to stay for free.
Yeah.
And some of them were paid as well. And so I had a dogs or a cat sit lined up for after the clinical study, and we
Mm.
ended up hanging out. And the guy that was my Lyft driver,
Yeah.
and we were talking about the clinical study and everything. We hung out a couple times and like hit it off. And so
Yeah.
then after the study, I kept coming back and forth between Kansas City and Las Vegas.
Mm.
And my Chiron point is also in Kansas City.
Right.
I had shared with you a little bit that I had been healing my mother wound. My
Mm.
mom had me at 17, and we're in a really good place right now. And at one point in my journey, I had stopped talking to her because I was just healing from the pain of having an emotionally unavailable mother. She just had a lot of her trauma that she didn't work through. And that's also why I was so passionate about going on this healing journey, because
Mm.
I was like, I want to show up as a present mom who is emotionally available for my kids and can teach them how to work with their emotions
Mm.
and how to work through trauma. And I want them to feel safe to come to me about anything. And so um, I ended up, when I left Las Vegas, I had a lot of people who were telling me, like, "I can't believe you're leaving your kids," or like, "What about your kids?" But my
Right.
kids really wanted to stay at their school. I was going to bring them with me on my journey. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, I don't even know where I'm going at this point.
Right.
I'm just kind
You
of
don't
like
want to uproot
on
them.
this healing journey. And I just felt like the universe telling me in this season, your absence is going to teach them more than your presence. And like right now, it's your time to heal so that you can be a present mom. And I saw that by me taking some time to heal deeply, then it would set up the rest of their childhood and adulthood for us to have a better relationship. And so we have a very unconditional way of like doing things. So I was going back and forth between Vegas and Kansas City, ended up, like, long story short, got engaged to my Lyft driver and
Yeah.
got married. And it was actually when he was coming to meet my kids. We did a drive-through wedding in Las Vegas. I had already
Oh,
been married before, so I'm like, I don't care about doing like a big ceremony. Plus, I didn't even really want to get married in the first place. Like,
yeah.
married, I was just like at a point where I'm like, I just want to be a free bird. But I felt like this intuitive nudge, like, no, this is like a very powerful connection, and you both are gonna grow and heal so much together, and you both have very similar missions in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And we're in the process of building different things to help people who are going on a healing journey as well. And astrocartography is part of that. And so, yeah, so coming back to the Chiron point here, so I've also been healing my own, like, causing my children possibly a mother wound by taking time away to heal. And so that's been something that I had navigated, because I also then we intentionally had a child right after we got pregnant. I
Mm.
was like, I feel like I just saw a vision of me having a kid with you, and I feel like it's part of a bigger plan than we can even like put into words right now. And so we actually did a sex magic ritual on a portal day. It was
Oh,
12th of
snap.
last year. Yeah. And so we put in the intention. I'm like all about intentions. And so we
Yeah.
did this like whole ritual with sex magic. And that's something that I want to like help people with a service too, or like doing a workshop or something, because
Yeah, that would be
you
cool.
can, like, even if you don't have a partner, you can use your own sexual energy to like channel it, to like raise it up through your kundalini, and you can put
Yes.
in intentions to manifest, and it's so powerful. And so yeah, we ended up manifesting a high vibrational baby through a
Yeah.
sex magic ritual. And by having my son, my youngest son, who's 7 weeks old now, I
Mm.
had healed even more deeply than I ever thought I could. And
Yeah.
I am getting to see this duality of the mom that I showed up for with my kids that I already have, my 9 and 11-year-old now.
Mm.
I get to see like how much more present I am this time after doing the healing self-discovery work, because I'm at a point where I know who I am. I know I'm here for a purpose.
Mm.
I've totally weaned off antidepressants since 2021. And through different spiritual practices, I've connected to myself and other people more deeply. And I've been able to show up as a present mom and also help my kids through struggles that they're going through even now. And I'm sure it's going to be even more as they enter their teenage years. And so, all of that is to say, the power of astrocartography and using it for the intention of healing can literally be life-changing. And I'm like
Yeah,
a living, walking like testimony of that.
for
And
sure.
like how it can help you reconnect with your deepest traumas, and also you can transmute that into your most vibrant treasures, and you get to see how valuable you are and how you are this divine aspect of source, and how we all are. And I see it in the trees and the squirrels running outside and the caterpillars and everything. It's just you see
Yeah.
the interconnectedness through your birth chart and through the spiritual modalities. And I feel like that's part of my North Node as well, because I'm living in
Yeah.
Kansas City now, and that's where one of my lines is. And
Mm.
right now, my biggest focus has been really stepping into my Dharma and embodying
Yeah.
that, the unconditional love and the unity consciousness. And I want to help other people come back to feeling that wholeness and the integration. And I feel like that's done. I feel like modern astrology is so focused on like our sun sign, and people usually who aren't like very well versed in astrology just look at their sun sign. And it's like there's
Right.
so much more to you than just your sun sign. And
We
it
are the
seems
whole
like our
universe.
stories, there's so much more to us than the pain and the struggles that we've been through, and the things where we feel like we're our biggest mistakes or our biggest struggles. It's like you're so much more than that, and it's all interwoven, and it like all happened for a divine purpose. And the more you do the self-discovery, you see how it all weaves together. just like with astrocartography, you see how the energies weave together and how they interact with each other. And it's like this whole integrated approach where you can look at it from all these different lenses and intentions. And you don't
Yeah.
even have to leave your house to experience that. I went through like a drastic measure and like sold everything and went on like this 2 year surrender with the universe, like, okay, universe, like I'm gonna take the step forward and you're gonna show me the next step. But you really
Yeah.
can do it from your living room, you can do it from your hometown, you can do it from your workplace. And I love how your most recent episode on astrocartography, the exploring astrocartography, you touched on that. And
Yeah.
I like would love to hear more about like your tips on how to help people tap into that as well, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something that like anyone can access anywhere, and it's such a powerful tool to reconnect with your truth and your roots and who you truly are. And I feel like the deeper we connect to ourselves, the more we can connect with other people, and that's why we're here, is to learn from each other and grow and know that you don't have to do life on your own.
Yes, I
I just said a lot.
absolutely agree with that. No, no, we're two Geminis. It's gonna be a long episode, guys. Sorry.
I love it.
No, you're good. That was amazing, and that was a beautiful testimony, honestly. So I definitely will dive deeper into like remote activation and how to do it, but a few key points and synchronicities that I noticed even within your story, starting with the fact that both of your kids, going back to your husband and how you met him, both of your kids were 8, which is in numerology, that is the number of karma. I think that is so beautiful being that you guys met on your North Node as well. So that's pretty freaking cool to me.
Yeah, I love
Also,
that.
yeah, also, with you being in South Africa and you going to your Mars line, and like Mars represents that masculine primal energy, I feel like you definitely tapped into that down to the point where you had to go like heat your own water. I think that's like the number one thing. I'm not gonna say the number one thing, but it was a big eye opener for me when I like traveled abroad and I realized like we have automated hot water heaters. Like I didn't think about that, but when I was in India, I had to turn it on before it would just be a cold shower. So I think that that's very cool that you had to like go and heat your own water, but that's so I just saw the Martian energy there and I was like, "Oh wow, like this is all playing out." But to your point, you're right. Like most of the time when you study astrocartography and Mars lines, it's always, yeah, don't stay there for long. Like great for launching and getting started, but it's not like don't prolong the process. So that's interesting that you're like, yeah, I got
Yeah.
it. So
I
for
loved Africa and I loved the farm I was staying on. It was the wounds that were coming up. It was like, yeah, it took me to like the deepest wounds that I had, and just I had to find a way to save myself too, in a sense, and like get back home because I had
yeah,
gotten up to this point where I'm like, oh shit, I need to take action. Like no one's coming to
today.
save me. And although like I didn't make the money on my own, it was like
Mhm.
me even reaching out for help was like huge.
Yeah,
And
that's
that was like a
bold.
big action step that I had to take and learn, because I was one that did not ask for help. I was super
Mhm.
independent, and Mars is like, you're gonna learn today.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like, so on one end it's like that macho energy where it's like, yeah, no, I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody, but it's like that lesson of actually, yes, you do. So I
Mhm.
think that's really cool. Another thing that I wanted to ask, as far as your Pluto line, do you know if it was like which line it was? Like, was it the descendant line in
It
Kansas City?
um it was Plune Pluto trine my midheaven.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So very, I mean, that's right along success. Like that's a beautiful benefic line. Then that's very interesting. I was just asking because of lately in my clients, I've been noticing a lot of people will attract their twin flame, or it's just flat out like trauma bonding as far as like relationships,
Mhm.
unless you both do the work and transmute the lessons that you're supposed to learn in this lifetime and then come together. So I thought it was beautiful how you talked about how your husband has been on his own journey, and when you guys came together, it was like this beautiful combination of like these are the lessons that we learned and now let's show up as co-creators of the universe. I think that that's just like chef's kiss. Beautiful.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the twin flame too, because I had such a wound around that as well. Because a couple years ago, I had this guy tell me he was my twin flame, and I
Mm,
didn't feel that. It was like not
yeah.
resonating. And then he went on to cause me so much trauma to heal from.
Ooh.
And so then when I had met my current husband, the first night that we went out on a date, he was like, just randomly, we were walking and he's like, I feel like we might be twin flames. And I'm like, nope, I do not believe
Please.
in twin flames. But we really have like been on such similar journeys. And even like
Mm,
our parents had us both at 17. We both
yeah.
had like our youngest kid was the same age. And
Yeah.
we both were drawn to the same healing things, like the same NLP training and psychedelics to heal. And then so I remember asking the universe when he had said, I think we're twin flames. That night, I was like, okay, universe, higher self, intuition, like for what purpose this connection? And it was
Yeah.
just two words, and it was catalyst connection. So
Ooh.
I feel like we really have been this catalyst in each other's lives to like really like be like, okay, you got to step up. Like, you need to stay in
Yeah.
integrity. Like, you're saying
Yeah.
this, but you're doing this. Or, like, I notice you still struggle with this addiction or this habit or whatever. And so, but being
Yeah.
able to do it in a loving way. And we have such a beautiful way of balancing each other out. It's been completely reshaping my former views on relationships. And
Yeah.
yeah, like when I got divorced in 2020, I was like, I am never getting married again. I am fine on my own. I
Yeah.
was just like, just having one night stands, but that was so unfulfilling. And I felt so drained doing that. And then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be single and like by myself the rest of my life. And it was as
Yeah.
soon as I surrendered and I was like, I'm done trying to force these connections. That's right when he had also
Yeah.
entered
That's
my
when your
life
partner
too.
shows up.
It was crazy. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
twin flame definitely resonates. I'm still like open to, okay, universe, like, I'm not going to label this connection, just like whatever we're meant to experience for however length of time, whether it's like
Yeah.
forever in this lifetime or whether it's just for a period. I'm just open to watching it unfold as it did on my self-discovery journey.
Yeah, that's so cool. Last synchronicity I want to point out is the fact that you talked about you guys doing a sex ritual. It's so crazy because I was actually listening to a podcast about sex and manifestation and orgasms and like manifesting through all of that. Which, if you don't know what sex magic is, that's a great rabbit hole to dig down because it's
Hmm.
tantra, all that good stuff. Another episode once again, but that was another synchronicity. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I don't meet a lot of people who practice that as well. So I was like, oh wow, like that's so and then like a baby, like you really showed up as like full blown co-creators and now it's like, yeah.
Yeah. And then,
Sorry.
okay, have you heard of the part of fortune in the chart too?
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
astrocartography chart? So, my part of fortune is in Leo, and it's all about like manifesting with play and pleasure and like really
Right.
tapping into like being the leader of your life. And then
Yeah.
I think I told you my son, his moon is in Leo, and I came across this post. I don't know if it was yours or someone else, but someone was
Mm,
saying that your kid's moon sign is how you'll show up as a mom in their life. And I was like, oh, duh,
yeah.
that makes sense. And so, yeah, his moon's in Leo, and that's where my part of fortune is, which is also like as I'm stepping into my North Node, I've been really being open to, okay, how can I step into this part of fortune and like activate this like pot of gold in a sense for
Yes.
my life of where it feels super lit up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was like another synchronicity that happened too that
That
was a
is.
result of the sex magic ritual.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yes. So the moon, that wasn't my post, but love that post. The moon
Okay.
does, yeah, the moon does represent the mother and then the sun represents like the father in astrology. So that's really cool that it kind of still that karmic blueprint shows in his birth chart as well. So that's oh
Yeah.
my God. I just love this. This is great. I'm enjoying this episode. I hope you guys are too. So you kind of already touched on it. I wanted to talk about, guys, I recently did an episode about the law of detachment and just letting go. So how was that for you during your journey? Like even, I mean, it takes guts to even say like, hey, can you guys help me out? Especially if you're the type of person where you normally don't ask. But overall, how did you get, I mean, was it something where you were just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it before I think about it too much because I have those moments? Or how did you get to the point where you just said, I'm just gonna go and universe, I trust you? Like, what was that process like?
That's such a good question. And there's like, this is such a multifaceted question
Yeah, yeah.
because there was a piece to where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just book the ticket. But then so much resistance came up. And it was
Mm,
like this internal battle where
yeah.
like, and especially as a Gemini, sometimes I feel like split personalities where one's like, we're going, let's do it. And then 5 minutes later, I could be like, nope, I'm gonna like cancel my ticket and
Yeah.
we're gonna just not go in that direction. And so it's a lot of it for me is finding ways to get your heart and mind in coherence so
Mm,
that it's like that confidence when you do make a decision,
yeah.
having that clarity. And even if you can't see the outcome, it's trusting that if you're led to a certain place, especially in your astrocartography chart,
Mm,
trusting that you're being led to those energies, even if you can't see the whole map in a sense, or like even if you can't
sure.
see it fully unrevealing itself. And so there definitely was resistance that came up, and I had to just make a conscious choice to keep moving forward. It's
Yeah.
like if I was pulled toward a specific location, like there was one point I was led to Denver and I like went to try to cancel everything
Mm,
and it was just turning into a lot of chaos. And I'm like, I know I need to go to this point for some specific reason, even if I can't fully see it yet.
yeah.
And also, what's coming through that I feel led to share is like, I know you talked about ley lines a little bit, and I
Mm,
also have learned about grid work and gatekeeping and how
yeah.
certain people's energies have these like imprints or they like activate different places on earth. And so
Mm,
even if you think you're going to a place for healing, your energy may be led there to actually help heal the lands there and like
yeah.
activate certain energies through our own blueprint of like our own auric field and energy field. And so
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned too is it's so much bigger than just like our own journey. As a collective, there's a lot of people that are here to help humanity ascend and expand their consciousness and heal the energy and heal the segregation and the dysfunction and the pain that's been going on for so long. And so that starts with each of us really being open to how can I add more love to this planet and how can I help this planet heal both like the actual planet itself and the people around us. And sometimes we
Yeah.
don't even have to interact with the people, like have a conversation with them, like just our energy alone can affect people in certain places. And you really never know who you're going to come in contact with. And that's kind of what became like my fuel is each time I took a step forward, it unlocked this like magic zone when I took the
Yeah.
step to step out of that comfort zone. And it's like the comfort zone wasn't even comfortable. It just is what felt safe because it
Yeah.
was like familiar, even if it was chaotic and painful. And so the more I
Uh,
could just trust that there's something more out there, there's more love out there, there's more magic out there, there's more expansion out there. And also with expansion, it comes with growing pains as well. Like a
for
lot of people will
sure.
be drawn to their Jupiter line and they're like, yeah,
Yay,
expansion. And it's like,
lucky.
expansion requires contraction as well. Like you
Yeah.
can't just expand without also like contracting and letting go of what's no longer in alignment.
Yes.
Like when I went to Southern California, I had a vehicle that I was paying so much money for. It was a 28% interest. It was like
Mm.
insanely disgusting, like how much banks are making off of people too. And
Yeah.
so it was one of these things that were really out of alignment. And I had been at a point in my journey where on that line, it was like, letting go of things that are no longer serving you. And so I was like, okay, universe, I surrender. I'm letting go of anything not in alignment.
Yeah.
And like, I kid you not, the next day my car got repossessed. And I was like, well, I just have to trust that I knew that wasn't in alignment. And
Yeah.
even though that's like also, I'm still like paying back the repercussions of that decision.
Yeah.
It's like when you choose to let go, trusting that even if it's painful or not what you wanted, just trusting
Mhm.
that it is happening for some sort of reason, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to you now. And then later on in my journey, I realized that my soul was calling me to travel more than just to places I could drive. And so if I
Right.
had a car, that would have been holding me back from going to Africa or going across the country to Kansas City because I wouldn't have driven there.
True.
And before I was staying confined to like, I'm seeing it as like this caterpillar where like you're
Yeah.
staying on the ground and like staying close by because
Mhm.
like that's all you feel you can go. Like I can only go this distance. And so
Yeah.
once the car was gone, it like opened up all these other opportunities to fly to places. And
Yeah.
I didn't have the insanely high bill to pay for every month, even though I'm still having to pay back the car. It was just like in the moment, it was this relief of, okay, I let go of that and now I can just learn the lesson from it and keep moving forward and keep
Yeah.
expanding and keep growing and knowing that everything's going to balance out, even that financial decision. But yeah, so
Yeah.
letting go also requires a lot of trust in yourself. You really have to be in tune with your intuition and using your discernment on what is in alignment and what is not, and being able to let go without attachment to the things that are not in alignment. And
Mhm.
trust that as you let go, you're opening up space for things that and people and places that are more in alignment to fall into place. And so
Yeah.
that's what keeps me in this detachment or this state of letting go. Even in my current marriage, I trust that if this is not meant to be a lifelong thing, if we were
Mhm.
just meant to be in each other's lives for a certain period, I'm surrendering to that too, which is then helping us have a healthy connection because we are more present in the moment, knowing that at any moment when we detach, like people and things can leave our lives. And so
Yeah.
appreciating what we have in the moment and giving gratitude for the things that we do want to keep in our life so that we can put that energy toward it too. And
Yeah.
so instead of looking at detachment of like, oh, I have to let go, it's like, okay, but also what do I get to receive? And what
Right.
is here for me now that I've already received? And how can I express gratitude for that so that I keep putting the energy into what I actually want to keep in my life and what I want to nurture and cultivate and grow?
Yeah, that is so good. Oh my God. I'm glad that you mentioned like the expansion comes with contractions because I think that's how successful people actually become successful because their nervous system learns how to tolerate having like the discomfort of expansion, but also the expansion is like the good side of expansion as well as like the growing pains at once. I think a lot of people, when you see people manifest and suddenly they lose it or something goes wrong, like money is a big example. Like I mentioned in the other episode, like you can manifest $1,000, but then you might turn around and blow it, or you'll manifest a bill that's exactly $1,000 because it's like your nervous system is like brain overload, like what's happening, versus those people who practice being comfortable with those growing pains while still expanding, they're able to hold more, right? Like you hear people talk about being the container for what you want or becoming the container, and I think that that's a great example of that, honestly, because it's like if not, then yeah, you'll miss out. And I love how you saying like the purging process of the car actually opened up the world for you instead of just locally where you can drive. So that was beautiful.
Thank you. What was coming up too when you were talking about the contraction and expansion is like breath work too. That's also been a big part too, as I had been using it for healing and still use it to tap into healing energies or different intentions. Going into an active breathwork session, you can go in your like mind's eye and travel to different places with astrocartography to tap into the energy of that place and also like go through the process of letting go. And then as you're actually expanding and contracting your breath, it's like releasing those emotions and limiting beliefs of whatever it is that's still in your way. And then it's opening up space for these insights and creativity to come through. And you can do that all like as this multi-dimensional creation process with
Yeah.
breathwork and astrocartography. So that's another way that people can use breathwork in combination with astrocartography and without leaving your house in your own mind's eye and through breathing with intention and focusing on the energies of the place on your chart, you can have different insights and intuitive downloads come through as well. And I've
Oh,
done that before
wow.
as well. And
Oh,
it's like
wow.
actually practicing that expansion and contraction with your breath.
Yeah.
Or if you're traveling at a place like when I was on my Mars line in Africa, I remember sitting out in nature and breathing and just being like, okay, just focus on your breath. Don't focus on the pain that's coming up right now. Just breathe, be
Yeah.
here, look at the trees, touch the grass, smell the air. And it's like grounding practices can help you as well as you're moving through the energies on your chart, especially if it's one that's bringing up like a lot of resistance or
Mm.
tension, pain, and being able to like breathe through it and keep moving forward as you
Wow.
can.
Okay. Okay. This is good. I didn't know that. Okay. I'm gonna have to try that. That also reminds me that I never went back to remote activation, right? So that is next on my list to try for remote activation with the breath work. But also, so different ways you can activate. One obviously is, of course, you can like interact with the culture of the place. So for instance, personally, I love Japanese culture. I love anime. I learned a bit of Japanese. I love the food. I'm vegan, but if anytime I find vegan sushi, I'm going crazy. So all of these things are a part of remote activation. You're connecting with that culture. For me, I actually have a Saturn line in Japan, so it's quite funny how much, but I'm always doing something or interacting with that culture in some type of way almost every day. But for instance, I have a Jupiter IC line going through like parts of Europe, so Paris and Amsterdam. So when I was younger, I was obsessed with Paris. My room was decorated with like the Parisian themes. I had a little lamp that was the Eiffel Tower. Throughout middle school and high school, I took all the different levels of French. So that was a way that I definitely remotely activated that line. So you can learn the language, the food. Also, you'll find that if you tend to meet a lot of people from a certain region, then 9 times out of 10, that could be you remotely activating. Like, let's say your Venus line is going through London, for example, and you meet a lot of English people, then you could be remotely activating that place there. Lastly, if you get the chance to go to the place, or if you know people who have visited places where you have lines, you can always, those souvenirs that we all love, that is remote activation. So I've never been to Greece, but I have a Circe line going through there, which is like in modern astrology, they don't really talk about her, but some astrologers bring her up. But basically, it's like this nurturing effect, very like mothering connection to the land, to the people. Anytime you just want to nurture yourself or other people, you can go to these lines. So I have one of those lines in Greece. And so I have a keychain from Greece, or someone I knew went to Greece. And my commercial property, my landlord is actually from Greece. So I thought that was very cool. And I was like, oh, hey, it makes sense.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
I
that's
was
pretty.
just thinking too, I love the keychain idea or having like a symbol to tap into that energy too, or even
Yeah.
like going to get Greek food. I feel like Greek
Mhm.
restaurants or like Italian restaurants or Mexican restaurants are themed for that location too. Like where almost
Yeah.
like the paintings on the walls or whatever, or like the
Yeah,
music playing really makes you feel sometimes like you're in those places. So
for
going
sure.
to like a Greek restaurant and just kind of like playing with the energy there and seeing what comes through can be really powerful as well.
Yes, yes. And I absolutely love that. Those authentic mom and pops where they really just bring like those Italian restaurants where it literally feels like Little Italy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can do that. I think a lot of times, I think it's important to pay attention. Like if you were at that restaurant, or if you are talking to the people, or just watching the shows, whatever the case may be, pay attention to what comes up, what feels good or safe or unsafe in your body, and work with that energy. So but the breath work thing, I'm interested in that now.
Love it.
Yeah. So is that something that you offer as part of your like offer suite or
So I just started offering virtual breathwork sessions. I'm going to be
yeah.
completely honest, and no one signed up for the first two.
Okay.
And I would love to use astrocartography in a breathwork session. And I have played with that idea before as well. Same
Yeah.
with sex magic, being able to
Mhm.
bring breathing into those sessions
Oh
because
yeah.
it like helps you to really move that energy up from like your sacral up to like your pineal and typing into the creativity and the
Yeah.
manifestation and pleasure. So yeah, I definitely love breath work and I use it all the time. And using that with a combination of NLP to help you release negative emotions or heavy emotions. I don't really believe any emotions negative, so I want to
Yeah.
reframe that to like heavier or denser emotions and
Right.
being able to move through it with breath work and focusing on an intention of what you're releasing and then also being able to tap into the astrocartography chart of where on your birth chart is a place where you can do healing, whether it's through your
Yeah.
Chiron or your Pluto or whatever it is for you that's tied to your wounds on your chart. Being able
Mhm.
to like use all of those aspects in your breath work is something that anyone can do from anywhere. We all can breathe, otherwise we wouldn't be alive. And
Yeah.
all you have to do is like close your eyes and breathe and set the intention and allow the journey to lead you to whatever is meant for you in that session.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. So please connect with Tiffany if you want to try this out because it definitely sounds interesting and yeah, I support it. The last thing I want to ask you about is the concept of, like I said earlier, I was listening to your podcast, so I want to ask about the concept of the golden shadow. I really like that. That was my first time hearing about that, and shadow work has become a big thing. It's become a buzzword pretty much. Like if you go on TikTok, you'll see the shadow work journals and everybody's talking about it, but it's this, like you said, it's the denser version, the part like the purging part. But you emphasize that there's also a lighter part to it and embracing your inner light by doing golden shadow work. So can you let the listeners or give us a deeper dive?
Yeah. Okay. So a lot is coming up around this right now. First of all, today's the first day of Scorpio season, and
Yeah.
my Pluto is in Scorpio, and I have had noticed this pattern where I got triggered around like porn or like people really tapping into their sexuality or like really embracing that, which is funny because I also love sex and I do sex magic rituals. And
Mhm.
so with the golden shadow, I realized what was triggering me was the confidence in these women to be able to just own their sexuality and embody who they are. And
Yeah.
like, even if they're misunderstood, just really being able to like be themselves in like their role or whatever it is that they do.
Yeah.
Even if they're not like a porn star, but like, because I don't really watch porn at all.
Yeah.
But it like is something that I have explored like why is that such a trigger for me? And I realized that was like a golden shadow or like girls who are like twerking. I like started to kind of get triggered, but I realized it's like I wish that I would be able to step into that confidence. And then I realized I do have access to that confidence. It's just whether or not I choose to embody that. And
Okay.
so through the golden shadow, I feel like it also goes in tandem with our shadow work. So it's like diving into our wounds or our triggers, and then
Mhm.
also noticing what we admire about other people. And like for me, I really admire people who are like very confident dancing and like being very social, especially as a Gemini. And
Yeah.
also, a
Yeah.
pastor's daughter, I was like never allowed to go to school dances, like
Mhm.
couldn't listen to certain music, even though I would behind my parents' back, but it was like shamed. But I love like shaking my ass and like
Yeah.
things that I'm so scared to do it in front of other people. And so I
Mhm.
realized that's like a golden shadow that I could really benefit from working with and like being able to like dance in front of other people without being super awkward or like
Yeah.
shaming myself or judging myself or like dressing in ways that show off my body instead of feeling like I
Right.
have to dress a certain way because I'm a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And or like when I was a pastor's daughter, it's like, oh, you couldn't wear like midriff or like cleavage showing. And
Right.
just
Right.
being able to like tap into those more like taboo parts, whatever your own taboo is. Like for me growing up, like dressing sexy and like saying that you liked sex was such a taboo thing. Or even now, like if my mom heard that like I had my youngest son by doing sex magic, I don't know how she would feel about it. So if my mom ends up listening, sorry mom, but like also not
Oh,
sorry. It's like really embodying all parts of us, both like
yeah.
the shadow aspects, but also it brings us to our strengths and
Yeah.
to these aspects of ourselves that we also have been suppressing because either someone else told us it was wrong. And I feel like that ties into Lilith as well. It's like these suppressed
Yeah.
parts of us that are pure magic and it's our treasures. And either at some point someone said it's wrong, it's too much, it's not enough. And so we just
Mm.
stopped tapping into those parts of us. And so I love being able to help other people through identity work to really tap into not only their shadows and transmuting their pain, but also like what do you admire in other people? What would your higher self show up as? And I
Yeah.
also have this concept of tapping into your alter ego. So mine
Mm-hmm.
is Iris Rose, and I actually played with the idea of starting like an OnlyFans and it being Iris Rose, and it's like bringing light into the darkness and like
Yeah.
helping people see how they can not just stay stuck in the 3D part of sex, but also using that sexual energy, which is like this elixir to help you manifest whatever it is that you want, and being able to take this thing that society has kind of like tainted and objectified women. It's like, how can we
Right.
empower women to own their body and to know their value and know that there's so much more than their physical body. They have this soul that has so many different facets and aspects that you can explore through your birth chart. And
Yeah.
it's like appreciating and valuing themselves as a whole multidimensional being, not just their body. And
Yeah.
then like not just having the ego, but it's like how can we balance the ego and the higher self and the inner child and like come up with this like alter ego to where when you're not feeling as confident, you can step into your golden shadow or your alter ego. And it's like, okay, how would Iris Rose show up today? Like, would she
I
be
was Rose.
triggered that another woman is dressed sexy and walking past her husband? Or would she be like, oh my God, that woman is so beautiful. I love her confidence. Like, look at her smile. I love the way
Yeah.
she dresses. And like seeing other people's beauty and strengths as a gift and something to be admired and appreciated, and it's not a threat. Because I feel like society, especially women, we're like almost programmed to like see each other as a threat, especially when you're in a committed relationship.
For
It's like
sure.
that, like, even if we're not wanting that, it's like there's this, I don't know if it's ancestral or what, but it's like something that if you don't work through, if it's coming up, it can like completely destroy your relationship and your own self-value and self-worth because then you're
Yeah.
coming across as like this jealous person or you're comparing and you're not stepping fully into your light because like there's this, I don't even know how to like fully explain it, but I feel like
It's like a societal construct where it's like we are taught to have this like competitive sense when it comes to dating. Like it's not enough men for women, which I mean it may be more women in the world than men. I don't know the statistics, but it's just this idea of like we're back in the hunter-gatherer or animalistic days where it's like, oh no, this is my mate and you can't have him. So
right.
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Also to your point, to the alter ego point, have you read the book? It's called The Alter Ego Effect.
No, but that
That,
definitely lights me up.
yeah,
Just
no, that is literally exactly what you're talking about. Is this guy, he coaches athletes, superstars, and everyone else to pretty much create an alter ego that they can tap into when they need to get a certain job done.
I love that.
So,
Because then you can really like embody that almost like you're putting on a costume or you're becoming this like actor or actress in your life, but it's really
yeah,
you. It's just the frequency that you're tapping into. Like you're
ex
not really like changing yourself other than like your frequency and your energy that you're putting into a
yeah,
situation and being able to like snap into that. Like, okay, I'm stepping into my confidence right now. I'm stepping into my
Yeah.
trust right now.
Yeah.
Stepping into love right now.
That's
So
literally
powerful.
you would enjoy that book because he uses like Superman and Batman as an example, like who is Kent Clark when he takes the suit off versus who is Superman, when he puts it on. So
I
I think
love
you would
that.
enjoy that book. And also I appreciate the fact that you did talk about, you know, women and them like embracing their sexuality and how it's like on the one end, it's like we are these objectified sexual beings, but then on the other end, it's like if we embrace that sexuality, then it's bad, it's wrong, it's you can't do that. So it's literally the podcast that I was listening to earlier. That's a word for word. That was a quote, guys, but word for word, that's what they were talking about. And it's funny because before we connected to set up this episode, I just had this like I've been observing my shower thoughts. And so randomly in the shower, I thought about like how sad Marilyn Monroe. I actually like Marilyn Monroe, but a lot of people label her as a whore. And I get it based on how she was objectified. But when I was in Amsterdam, she was actually in the sex museum because she is a sex symbol at this point. And they talked about how she did that nude picture that turned her into this sex symbol, but she only did it because her car was about to be repossessed. So the guy that normally takes her photos offered like, hey, if you take this picture nude, I'll give you, I guess what's now equivalent to like $1,000. So like she could pay her car note and her rent and like get some food. She did it not realizing that that is now his intellectual property. He made millions and she only ever made $1,000.
Wow.
And I'm like, could you imagine? I went on this rant on my story, like, could you imagine doing that just to pay your car note and then for years, decades later, not centuries, but decades later, you're dead, but decades later, people are still calling you a whore. Their granddaughters are now OnlyFans stars. Or
Right.
like flat out porn stars, but you were a
Yeah.
whore. Like it was
That's so wild.
it is. And I'm just like, it's just so what but again, different episode, female sexuality and just like the liberation of that. And definitely that is flat out Black Moon Lilith energy. So we'll have to come back and expand on that subject because I could go for days.
Same. I'm so excited.
Yeah, yeah. So where can the people find you
I
on?
am on Instagram at Grit Grow Rise, and then I did start another Instagram for Iris Rose.
Okay,
We'll
yeah.
actually post on that. I am working to integrate Iris Rose into Tiffany.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
me. So yeah, I
Yeah.
have Iris Rose Oracle, and then I mostly am on Instagram. So it's the best place to
Okay.
reach out.
Awesome. We can't wait to see Iris Rose twerking on Instagram, guys.
Former pastor's daughter turned porn star as a mom and a married wife. The best part is my husband's like, go for it. Like he's encouraging it. He's like,
We love
Mom,
that.
like I'll be your first fan.
We
Please.
absolutely love that. Oh, I love that. Okay, so yeah, so if you'd like to connect with Tiffany, that is where you can find her. Anything else that you want to add or anything that you are working on or would like to promote?
I was just thinking if anyone is interested in astrocartography and hasn't explored their chart. I know you do birth chart or astrocartography readings, and since it's Scorpio season, Scorpio is also like the phoenix rising from the ashes. So I think it would be really cool if people booked a session with you to explore which placements they have Scorpio in or their Scorpio house. And I feel like that would be really fun to tap into the energy of this Scorpio season and how can people rebirth and tap into their golden shadow and strip off and detach from these things that aren't even in alignment with who they are and really like embodying who they actually are.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That is good. Yes.
To go book a reading with her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go. Let's book us up, guys. We have breath work. We have astrocartography. You do oracle tarot reading as well, or
I do, yes.
okay,
I
yeah.
mostly just do it on full new moons just because I like tapping into the energy there, but I can do it an intuitive reading whenever. And I have oracles too with like archangels and earth warriors and
Ooh, yeah.
Isis.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. 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 So, yes, guys, reach out. I'll put all of Tiffany's information in the show notes. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you so much.